Teddy Bridgewater right here gets suspended from coaching high school football because he was helping fund players' expenses and also team expenses. We're talking out there funding meals. We're talking camp. We're talking uniforms. We're talking Uber rides to and from practice. And now people are upset and he gets suspended from coaching. He was just a volunteer.
What if I told you that in 2024, while 17-year-olds are signing million-dollar nil deals and getting chauffeured to college visits in Bentleys, a former NFL quarterback just got suspended for buying a kid an Uber ride to practice?
Teddy Bridgewater situation is really interesting.
Very much so.
Okay, now there's different numbers coming out, like the amount of money that he spent on his players' rehabilitation, Uber, food, transportation, things like that. So that is the narrative that is from the Teddy Bridgewater camp, because he's been suspended for a year from a league, I guess, that he no longer coaches. His statement's like, you can't be suspended for something I'm not coaching, because he's now back with the Lions or whatever.
You won't believe what they're calling a violation, and what's really happening behind the scenes will make your blood boil. This isn't just about football rules. This is about power, jealousy, and a system so broken that helping hungry kids is now considered cheating. Stick around, because what I'm about to reveal about Teddy Bridgewater's suspension will change how you see high school athletics forever. They say you can't go home again, but Teddy Bridgewater did. And he did it the right way. Not for attention, not for money, but because South Florida raised him and he wanted to raise it back.
He walked into Miami Northwestern, a high school football program struggling to stay relevant, and turned it into a championship force. Not with fancy boosters or five-star transfers, but with his own paycheck, his own time, and his own two hands.
After a solid NFL career with teams like the Vikings, Saints, and Dolphins, he could have chased broadcasting gigs or business deals. Instead, he walked into Miami Northwestern, a high school football program struggling to stay relevant, and turned it into a championship force within 1 year. Not with fancy boosters or five-star transfers, but with his own paycheck, his own time, and his own two hands. But here's where it gets insane. They've suspended him for caring too much. Today, I'm breaking down the real story behind these so-called violations, the jealousy that's driving this witch hunt, and why this case exposes everything wrong with modern athletics. Trust me, by the end of this video, you'll understand why this feels less like justice and more like a warning shot to anyone trying to lift up their community without asking permission. Let's start with what actually happened at Miami Northwestern, because the turnaround was nothing short of miraculous. When Teddy arrived, this wasn't just a struggling program, it was a broken one. The Bulls had gone 4-6 the previous season, morale was in the gutter, and the community that once took pride in their team was growing numb to disappointment. The facilities were outdated, equipment was falling apart, and these kids, talented, raw, hungry for success, were being failed by a system that had given up on them. But Teddy didn't flinch. He saw something everyone else missed: potential. These weren't just players to him, they were reflections of his own journey. Kids walking the same broken streets he once did, fighting the same battles against poverty, violence, and neglect that he had already survived. So he didn't just show up like a celebrity making appearances. He showed up like a big brother, a mentor, a protector who understood their struggle because he'd lived it. What followed defied every expectation. Under Bridgewater's leadership, the Bulls transformed into a dominant force, tearing through Florida's ultra-competitive 6A division to win a state championship. Think about that, in one of the most talent-rich football landscapes in America, where programs spend millions and recruit nationally, a former NFL quarterback took a losing team and made them champions in 12 months. He'd been on NFL fields under the brightest lights, but what he built on that cracked pavement with outdated equipment meant more to him than any Sunday spotlight ever did. Now here's where this story gets absolutely infuriating, because the so-called violations that got Teddy suspended aren't rooted in corruption or some secret scheme to cheat. They're rooted in basic human decency. According to reports, Teddy's crimes include paying for Uber rides when kids couldn't get to practice, funding rehabilitation treatment when injured players had no insurance, buying meals for hungry teenagers, and even shelling out his own money to paint the field so the lines would look crisp on Friday nights. Let me repeat that, in an era where high schoolers are signing nil deals worth hundreds of thousands, where DoorDash is dropping food off at locker rooms, where Raising Cane sponsors tournaments, and where 16-year-olds are becoming overnight millionaires with corporate backing, Teddy Bridgewater is being punished for buying a kid dinner and giving him a ride home. The hypocrisy is staggering. The same system that celebrates when a brand sponsors a teenager they've never met suddenly panics when a black coach who actually knows these kids dares to take care of them personally. And here's the kicker, Teddy self-reported much of this. He wasn't hiding in shadows or pulling strings behind closed doors. He came forward, admitted what he did, and stood on it proudly because in his mind, and in the minds of most rational people, helping kids is never a violation, it's a virtue. But somewhere in the machinery of high school athletics, someone decided that compassion was too dangerous to allow. But what if this was never really about rules at all? What if the real motive was something much more sinister, jealousy? When Teddy touched down in South Florida, he didn't just inherit a struggling football team. He inherited a battlefield where fragile egos and petty politics thrive like cancer. Think about it from their perspective. Here's a man who bypassed all their political games, their handshakes, their donor dinners, their careful relationship management. He walked in with talent, heart, and resources, and within one season completely embarrassed everyone who'd been playing by the rules for years. That kind of success doesn't just get noticed, it shakes the entire power structure. There are whispers, not facts, just whispers that other coaches, frustrated by being outcoached, outworked, and outshined by a former NFL quarterback, began stirring the pot. Complaining, questioning, accusing, not because they had proof, but because they couldn't stomach the reality that someone had succeeded without kissing their rings or asking their permission. This reeks of the same playbook we've seen for decades. A black man succeeds too loudly, too quickly, and suddenly the microscope appears. The narrative shifts from celebration to suspicion. The system moves to clip his wings, not to stop a cheater, but to silence a symbol. Because Teddy didn't just uplift kids, he exposed how little the system had been doing for them all along. And that's unforgivable to people whose power depends on maintaining the status quo. If you think this story is just about wins and losses, you've completely missed the point. Teddy Bridgewater didn't just coach football, he rebuilt faith. In neighborhoods where young black boys are taught early that the system isn't built for them, Bridgewater gave them something far more valuable than any playbook: hope. These kids weren't just players to him, they were extensions of his own journey. When one of his players got injured and had nowhere to go for treatment, Teddy didn't think twice about funding rehabilitation. When a working-class mom couldn't get her son to practice after pulling a double shift at the hospital, he made sure that kid had a ride. When the field looked shabby and these young men deserved to feel pride stepping onto their turf, he bought the paint himself. That's not recruiting violations, that's leadership. That's love. And that's exactly what the system punished. Ask the players, ask their families, ask the young men who say without hesitation that Teddy Bridgewater changed their lives. This isn't just about football. This is about a man who gave these kids something the system never could, someone who showed up for them no matter what. Bridgewater's character has never been in question. Not in college, not in the NFL, and certainly not in the hardscrabble neighborhoods of Miami. He's the same man who gave NFL game checks to equipment staff, who preached humility when reporters begged for sound bites, who led with action instead of ego. When forced to choose between following rules or following his heart, he chose his heart every single time. Let's stop pretending this was ever about ethics or protecting the integrity of high school sports. Teddy Bridgewater didn't cheat, didn't lie, didn't cut corners. What he did was care. And in a system built to reward silence and compliance, his compassion became a threat that had to be eliminated. He fed hungry kids, funded their recovery, gave them rides, and restored dignity to a program left for dead. That's not misconduct, that's manhood. And for that, they suspended him. But what they really did was expose themselves. They exposed how out of touch their rules are with reality. They exposed the jealousy that rises when someone wins without playing political games. They exposed the fear that grips institutions when a black man with real power walks into a room and doesn't ask for permission. Here's what they couldn't account for though: you can't suspend impact. You can't blacklist legacy. You can't silence the young men who will carry Teddy's lessons far beyond any football field. He may have been forced off the sidelines, but in the eyes of his players, his community, and now a growing national audience, he's still coaching, still leading, still showing what it means to give without expecting applause. So if you're keeping score, the system might have issued a suspension, but Teddy Bridgewater earned something far greater: respect. And no committee, no jealous rival, no bitter administrator can ever take that away. This case isn't just about one coach or one team. It's a mirror reflecting everything broken about how we treat people who dare to care too much in a world that rewards caring too little. What do you think about this suspension? Is this really about protecting high school athletics, or is something else going on here? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspective on this story. If this opened your eyes to what's really happening in high school sports, smash that like button and subscribe because I'll be following this story as it develops. And if you want to see more content exposing the truth behind sports controversies, check out the video I've linked on screen right now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.